22 seconds of hard-to-see paragraphs of obituary reading. Holy shit, did they already remake Downsizing?
Okay, come on, let's go. We're late. Your mother's in the car already.
Maybe next time wake the kids up before the mother gets in the car. Funeral creeps.
There aren't nuts in that, are there?
Glad Charlie could inappropriately eat a chocolate bar at her grandma's funeral, so that fake Kaiser Soze could bring up her allergies. Also, child in a horror movie has asthma or peanut allergy that will factor into the plot later cliché. If I've learned anything from my countless hours of CSI viewing, it's that if you make miniatures, you're a serial killer. Pretty sure there's no gray area here. Also, come on, Annie. Small world? You got to do better than that. If your whole milieu is miniature art, couldn't you literally call everything you do small world? Playing with yourself. Hereditary. Also, was that a ghost, or was Annie just seeing things? If you expect the movie to shed any light on this, you're We know that this actually happened. Annie's mom breastfed Charlie. But how? That must have been one epic breast pumping to keep it going through her menopausal years and some 30 years after the last time she gave birth. Peter fails miserably at the Bechdel test. Sorry. She probably gets this all the time, but we're an often lowbrow film and animation channel, so we have to go there. You know, for the kids.
So does that make it more tragic or less tragic that if he has a choice?
One thing you can always count on in horror movies, one of the main characters will be learning about something in literature that will be important to their own lives later. Of course, who can blame Boner for getting a Peter in class and not paying attention?
Care to weigh in, Peter?
Why is Peter still even looking at his phone? Is it really taking him this long to read Want to Smoke a Bowl at break? If so, maybe he should have held off on that bowl before break. Movie is clearly trying to make Charlie the creepy kid in the family, but Peter is making a very good case for himself, staring daggers into Bridget's back. I mean, it's not like Charlie is off eating chocolate while staring at a dead bird. Carry on. Behead shadowing. Kid is at school and notices a creepy person staring at them across the street in a horror movie cliche.
Hey, Dad. It's the cemetery.
Why would the cemetery ask for Steve specifically when revealing the news about Annie's mom's grave being desecrated? Maybe he paid for the funeral, but that means elsewhere in the movie world, Bruce Wayne would get a call about Clark Kent's grave being desecrated instead of Martha. Maybe common sense isn't a cemetery's forte.
I didn't let her anywhere near me when I had my son.
We find out later that the King Payman cult is super manipulative with the ability to control Annie's family's fate to a high degree, and that Payman wants a male vessel to possess. So why did they fail so hard when Peter was born?
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family. I'm not even really sure if they could.
Tony f***ing Collette. We will see this mysterious light a few times in the movie, and it's supposedly the spirit of King Payman we see later when Peter gets possessed. But I thought his spirit was living inside Charlie. Do spirits have to go on smoke breaks too? I can see why this picture would be taken. After all, it's Grandma feeding the new baby. But Grandma and the baby look so dead inside, I highly doubt that it would be hung on the refrigerator. The C-mail gives a reply all option, even though Sylvia Archer sent this only to Annie, and Gmail simply doesn't give this option under those circumstances. This is definitely the worst mistake in the movie, and I'm going to add 100. No, wait, just one. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what Satan was asking.
You gonna take your sister?
Mom goes to incredible lengths to make sure Charlie doesn't drink by making him take his way younger sister to a high school party. She suspects, like any good mom would, that drinking will be taking place there, but decides that this will be a safe environment for a 13-year-old daughter to experience. And yeah, I know about the creepy cult that apparently controls their actions. We'll get to that later, but for now, sin. This symbol is everywhere, and it's a neat touch explaining the cultist's reach. But come on. To be able to figure out what Charlie and Peter are going to do at every minute? I'd love to see them plan this shit out. Seriously, this movie is 67% foreshadowing.
Just walk over and stand there and they'll give you peace.
I get that Peter wants to go not impress Bridget with more of his not-so-smooth talk, but he couldn't think of anything better to distract Charlie with? Not only does she have the nut allergy to worry about, but this is a f***ing high school party. There could be f***ing pot in that cake, which is exactly why he doesn't want her to go with him to the bedroom. Charlie seems old enough to know to ask whether or not there were nuts in this cake, and since this is pretty much the inciting incident for the rest of the movie, it's sin-worthy.
Are you okay?
For the record, what happens to this poor girl is absolutely awful, but this is also the ultimate cock block. Nut allergy block?
It's hard to breathe.
Also, hard to believe that when Annie made Peter bring his sister to this thing, she didn't make him bring the EpiPen. Nay, 2 EpiPens just in case. And we were already told that they forgot to bring one with them to the funeral at the beginning of the movie. I guess her nut allergy isn't that big of a deal because this family is terrible. I guess to get this beheading just right so that Peter would swerve to hit the telephone pole, the Payman followers went with the killing of a sacred deer. Even though Peter never answered his mom's phone call during the party, and that she was worried about them, and that going to a party like this would be a big moment in Charlie's life that she'd want to hear about, Annie conveniently for the movie stays in the bedroom, so that she can discover the horrific sight of her headless daughter in the morning. Also, I get that Peter is in shock, but he doesn't even try to superglue his sister's head back onto her body? Isn't that what all the kids do in these comedies when they break something priceless at a party? Risky business, anyone? 1.5 minutes of crying. Cemetery has a convenient plot open for dramatic camera movements directly across from the burial taking place on screen. Jesus, a heater makes the entire room glow a shade of red that you could see from space? Ah, Aunt Lydia! Luckily for the plot, the payment light spills blue paint on Joan's phone number, so that she'll call and go visit her. It's entirely outside her character to seek help like this, but she does it for the movie's sake. Maybe she has no choice. Maybe she's being drawn to these actions by the cult, but it seems like they leave a lot to chance. I mean, I guess they know Annie will call Joan just because she sees the number? Art.
I wish I could shield you from the knowledge that you did what you did, but your sister is dead!
This scene is so visceral, and everyone's so amazing in it, I'm removing 3 sins.
Because nobody admits anything they've done!
The United States of Annie. So was this a medium that taught Joan how to be a medium? Because that doesn't seem good for business. And Annie doesn't ask herself, how does this woman know how to do seances after a medium did it for her just once? Annie would be terrible at CinemaSins.
I don't know what language it is. The medium had me read it first.
If you don't know what language it is, then how do you know how to pronounce the words? And she doesn't even tell her how to say them before she leaves. Clock scare. Let it never be said that this movie didn't try to gaslight us. Annie wakes up Steve to do the seance. But why does this have to take place at 1:45 in the morning? The seance portion of the film is yada yada. Annie pulls this off like a seasoned Miss Cleo.
I tried this 20 minutes ago and it worked. I would not be bringing you down here if it didn't. We need to do this as a family. This needs all our energies, okay? Together.
Except you just said you did it by yourself 20 minutes ago, so why do you need them?
I read that earlier. I don't think I need to read that again.
Clever. The movie doesn't even make her say the thing that is obviously impossible to say. It's a good way of skirting the issue.
What language is even that?
I could ask the same thing. So apparently this is the ritual by which the cult gets Payman to leave Charlie and move to Peter. But this opens up way more questions. Like, where did Payman go after Charlie died? If this ritual is to bring Payman into the house, why doesn't it go inside Peter right away? All he needs is the most vulnerable vessel. And we've seen Peter. He's at his lowest right now.
When I did this earlier, this manifested on the page. I saw it.
Why didn't we see any of what Annie did before she invited the family to try it? Are we supposed to be as skeptical as they are? This is a kind of frustrating part of the movie to sit through, honestly, because there seems to be no point in why they didn't show us her first try.
What are you doing?
All the performances are very good in this movie, even great at times, but this cry moment is the worst. This movie does plant many clues that foreshadow later events, but none of the writing on the walls is ever explained, like the director just threw them in for sheer creep factor. Since Annie has been spending some of her nights in the treehouse, I'm not sure why Steve has to be couch commando. Also, this is taking nothing away from Toni Collette's performance, but I feel like Gabriel Byrne might be the Tom Cruise from Rain Man in this picture, and is giving a much better performance than he's getting credit for, and that is a sin. So that turned out not to be Charlie's head, but what made the ball fall from the wall.
You were pulling on my head!
Why does Peter think this when he never saw who was pulling on his head? Sure, there was supposedly a time when Annie nearly set he and Charlie on fire, but that doesn't mean she's the type to pull on someone's head. I love how Annie's first thought is, I tried to burn the book, and now I'm burning because of it, rather than any other reason her sleeve might be burning right now. Sure, she couldn't get the fire out earlier when she was slapping at it, but did she seriously think she'd put out the fire with that weak attempt? Man, Steve is a sound sleeper. Annie might want to check on him after she's done putting the fire out. He might be dead. Oh my god, Joan's involved in this, said no one who has ever seen a movie before. Also, what the f*** is all this? We got a broken pencil, some sticks, a couple animal heads, some bottles with temples from sunglasses attached, a whole bevy of what the f***. Yeah, it's a diorama of what happens at the end of the movie, but lady, buy some Barbie and Ken dolls. What you do with them afterwards is your business.
Peter! Get out!
So, can no one hear her except Peter? And if so, could the movie show us something so we can understand this? This movie makes Twin Peaks look like Blue's Clues. It was really nice of Mommy Dearest to highlight and underline the most crucial things that Annie would need to know. That's called thinking ahead. And just like everything else, it's all about f***ing money. This is essentially Ocean's 11 with crazy-ass witches. So, Annie's mom knew Joan and they were a part of this cult together. They sure left a lot to chance when they came up with this plan, didn't they? Good thing Annie found this only when it was too late. And also, why did they take so many goddamn pictures of themselves doing all this shit? Especially this, where it's clear Annie's family is a target. Also, it's a photograph of a photograph. Nickelback would be so proud. And Def Leppard. And ooh, the Verve pipe. Could the movie not come up with a better ghostly effect than the one that just looks like a cigarette burn? Conveniently, Annie finds the body right after she found all her late mom's pictures in satanic literature. Also, Steve clearly didn't decide to investigate the strange smell from a few days ago any further, and everyone was fine with it despite the renowned smell of corpses. Your social life does not recover from this, by the way.
You dug up the grave. All those nights you were pretending to go to the movies.
You mean, Steve really thinks Annie snuck out, dug a little bit of her mother's grave every day, and the cemetery didn't notice until the body had been taken out?
I need you to throw it in the fire.
I get that she's grasping at straws, but how is she so certain destroying this book will stop King Payman? And why does she think it won't attack Steve if he throws it in the fire like it did her? He was also with her when she contacted Charlie.
Steve, please. Please understand, baby. Please, please. Please throw it in the fire.
Even when you're watching a movie like Hereditary, which tries to elevate itself above typical horror movies, scenes like this where the crazy but not crazy but maybe a little crazy person tries to make the other person believe what they believe without any reason or logic can be downright exhausting to watch. Watching Annie plead with her rightfully disbelieving husband becomes a chore. I mean, I've been watching what's happening and I don't even believe her. And I bet we could do a bonus round on how many pleases have been said in this movie, but we'd die. There's already a fire to throw the book into. Pouring gasoline on top of it just seems like overkill. Gabriel Byrne. Also, if she threw it in, why is Steve now on fire? The first time she threw it in, it set her on fire and only started with her sleeve. So why did Steve go all Brad Dourif and spontaneously combust? Wait, is Payman inside her body now? I wish I knew what the light was. If it's actually Payman or Charlie or some other demon, the motherfucker can't make up his mind. Don't mind me, I'm just hanging up here in the corner of your room. I debated on what would be creepier, this or peeing in the middle of your bedroom, and I decided on this. What do you think? Why is Peter taking such a long goddamn time to walk down those stairs?
Mom?
I don't care how up that nose is, he should at least be getting a whiff of the barbecued burn right about now. Spider Annie, does whatever a Spider Annie does. Damn, I haven't seen Gabriel Byrne this charred and toasted since The Usual Suspects. How the f*** did she get up here? While I believe that these cultists could set up some spiritual and psychological I do not believe they could make a body transport through the ceiling to set up this scary image. If they can do this, they can literally do anything. Peter survives this? One thing I've learned from these movies is that demonic deities do not like people with clothes on. Also, Peter just realized he walked next door to the set of the next Human Centipede sequel. Hey Jim, heard you were in Hereditary. Who'd you play? Oh, me? I was one of those guys kneeling in the treehouse with my d hanging out. It was awesome.
Charlie.
Why is Joan calling Peter Charlie now? Even if there's an explanation for this, isn't he now King Payman? Why bother with any name other than that one?
We've corrected your first female body and give you now this healthy male host.
Why did it take 13 fucking years to do this, though? Also, the insane number of things that had to go right for these King Payman followers to get Peter to be the host is impossible. Maybe every step of this plan was manipulated in some way so that they would succeed, but think about what they had to do. They had to somehow make sure Peter brought Charlie to the party, she'd eat a piece of cake with nuts in it, have an allergic reaction, have Peter speed towards a hospital and run his sister's head into a pole while Charlie stuck her head out to breathe, have Annie run into Joan at a support group, have Annie call Joan when paint spilled on her phone number, believe Joan when she said she could talk to spirits, have Annie freak out about a book of drawings, have her convince the book absolutely needed to be burned, and trick her into trying again, only to burn Steve instead, make Peter investigate downstairs and run to the attic, eventually throwing himself out the window, and finally make him weak enough that Payman could finally possess his body. And I don't even think I've gotten all the stuff even with that long-ass rant. You might say, well, the cult would have found another way if this wasn't the one, and I say, good! Maybe it won't take so long next time.
And baldness is hereditary.
It is.
I love weed.
No, don't give a second thought as to who's going to pay the mortgage. We'll just leave it all up to Carolyn. You mean you're going to take care of everything now, Carolyn? Yes, I don't mind. I really don't.
I like the Wizard of Oz.
This is cancer, right?
I drive a Dodge Stratus!
You're gonna love my nuts.
Peter! Get out!
Too bad we can't stay, baby.